Hey everyone, welcome to another awesome day of FileMaker training as I adjust my camera. Glad you're here. Today is the last day of the free JavaScript training. Today is day 10. Day 10 of 10, right? So, and then this afternoon of all things, or this evening or tomorrow morning, depends on where on the globe you are, we will be starting the extra week 3, which is the paid training. A bunch of you will be there for that. I will be sending a reminder email out in flight while we're doing this. In fact, I'll be doing other stuff. So Leland should not ask me JavaScript questions during this 1-hour event. If I cover, if you're part of our paid training course, so once again, I'm just going to cover this real quick because Leland has to do like 3 hours of presentation today. It's going to be pretty brutal. It's going to be horrible. The conversation continues today. Once again, it's been cumulative, and week 3 will be cumulative as well. We start off kind of at this in this level right here, and we're progressing this way. So if you're just jumping in today and you haven't seen the previous recordings, you definitely need to kind of start these sequentially and go through them sequentially because Leland has spent a lot of time, whether you understand this or not, building a curriculum that's cohesive, that makes sense, that starts at the beginning. Like in the beginning, there was oxygen and you breathe. Then there was a mouse and you push the mouse with your finger. And then you start to see FileMaker, web viewers, and JavaScript, and he moves on very slowly to where you get to day 10. It's pretty hairy. And then really this afternoon would really be kind of episode 11, right? Like the secret episodes, right? And it's going to even be more so. So all of you have access to recordings. And if you're part of that group of people that's kind of funding Leland to encourage him to come back, we really appreciate that. If you come over to the website here and you hit already register, you're watching or want to see the recordings here, but basically you can go to a page, all the free videos will be there. And then if you have access to the paid content, that will turn on for you. Okay, very cool. So, and then Ian, thank you, Leland, for the sequential training. By far, very great trainer. Yes, I agree. It seems to have missed the concept. Why in your PDF editor, do you have your JavaScript function calling a sub function? Is this necessary? Question mark. So that's your first question for today, Leland. You see that question?
I am here. I saw the question. Welcome back to PDF editor day number something or other. We're on day 10 of JavaScript. Wow.
Yeah, day 10.
We've come a long ways. So to jump right into the question, what I can do is jump to where we left off on Friday, the load PDF section 7. And if you recall what that did here, that loaded a pre-existing PDF that's sitting right here in a FileMaker container. I just dropped it in there from the Finder. You can put your own in there. And we ended up with 3 pages. And then we added a page and we can get size and we can add text to it. So if we go take a look at we'll just jump through this because of course.
You are working on that question, right? You're going on this question?
Yes. Okay. Leading up to the question.
Okay, got it. So you're laying the groundwork. Okay, cool. All right.
Yeah, just kind of backing up and taking us step by step to get to that point so that nobody gets too lost. So we have we populate our initial web viewer with that init button like we've done before. And here we've done something a little different in that we encode that PDF file that's sitting in the container so that we can use it later. And here's our custom JavaScript. And what I'm going to do is copy all that and show it over in Visual Studio Code like we've done in the past so that we can look at these individual functions and address the question. So let me collapse some code here. Let me collapse that sub function or child function that is being asked about just so that we can see everything else around it. So this right here is the entire function that when it's run, will trigger it in FileMaker, and it's called PDFEditor load. We pass in a parameter, right? So when we launch this function, it skips this inner function or child function or sub function, however you want to name that, and it jumps right here to this one line. This one line is actually the only thing that happens when you call the parent function. So this is called load PDF. We pass in a parameter, and what that's doing is that's calling our child function, which is what you're asking about. So I suppose the easiest way to answer that question is that you'll notice a big difference here between this parent function and this child function. It's pretty obvious. It's this word right here. This child function is an async function. This one is not. So I don't know, I've never tried it, but I've never seen anybody attempt to load an async function directly from FileMaker. One of the problems is that if you were able to do it without generating an error, there's no way in FileMaker to do the .then and the .catch when that async function completes. So in order to call an async function, I've got to do it within a standard function. And from FileMaker, I can call a standard function. So I think that's probably the easiest way to explain why all of these functions I've built all call a normal function. And within that normal, if I can get my mouse to quit giving me submenus, inside every parent or normal function, I call an asynchronous child function. And as you know, inside of that, I have a try catch phrase. And when it successfully runs, we come back with the dot then. And we've got some dot catch code here, but like I've explained several times in the past, I've actually never seen this triggered. So really, this is the important stuff, which is, hey, when that child function is completed, when it's done, and it passes us back something, this is what I want it to do after that. And you can't do this part in FileMaker. So, Richard, do you feel like you understand that answer?
Yeah, the issue is an asynchronous issue, so it allows us to let it happen when it's ready to happen, right? That's why we're calling it as a subroutine.
Yeah, it's partially correct. I wouldn't say that that's the most complete answer, but yeah, it sounds like you're
I
following
get
it.
half credit. Well, then why don't you answer it
credit.
correctly? Why don't you answer it perfectly correctly then?
Well, all of this work, oh goodness, all of this work is being done in this asynchronous function, but I can't call this from FileMaker.
Okay, you can't call it.
That's the short version.
Okay.
So I have to call it here in a regular function.
Ian, are you good with that answer? Does that make sense? The part when he said asynchronous, that's stuff I know for sure, right? So asynchronous is good. FileMaker historically is a synchronous application. It's really at the pro level. It does one thing at a time. Like when you write a script, it just generally, when you write a script, it's very much like you're telling a user to do something really fast.
That's one line at a time.
On a dime at a time. And so it doesn't really run in parallel, blah, blah, blah. It's very synchronous. So there's an absolute beginning, there's an absolute end. And anytime we get to inject a asynchronous function to where even different processors on the computer can use it or different computers can process it, like you send a script to the server and it does it with PSOS, you do some stuff locally. Then you've got two processes running in parallel. You have to kind of manage that so they don't run into each other. But it's kind of it's a more, I would say, from intermediate to advanced topic. If you remember my four little personas there, the advanced persona.
Okay, so with that, we can probably move on to section number 8 to continue.
Yeah, you need to land that. I mean, basically, we got to land this plane today, right? Today.
Yeah.
So whatever you need to do to get to that spot.
We only have 2 sections left of this PDF editor, which we'll probably easily get to before the end. And then after that, we just have kind of some summaries and some stuff to show of other projects that are available to you written in JavaScript that are available on Pentagon FM, and can show them off a little bit and wrap things up. So
do that.
So with this, we'll move on to the next section, which is part 8. This one is get page. So why do we need this? Well, in the past, we've created a PDF from scratch. We've added text and image, and then we learned how to add a page. And last Friday, we learned how to load an existing PDF with multiple pages in it. But everything that we did on a PDF that had multiple pages is we just dealt with either the first page or the last page, just to keep it simple. But now we're actually going to get any page that we wish and modify it. So this is a great way to do the editing portion of a PDF, so that we can edit not only the first page or the last, but anything in between. So if we click on it here on this one, we get our same PDF that I've got sitting right here in this FileMaker container here at the top, and it's currently 3 pages. Okay. So I've got a button here with Get Page. And so now this is assuming that it's going to be for a user. So we're never going to ask the user to tell us, hey, if you want the first page, you really have to ask us for 0. That just doesn't make sense to a customer. So this is where we need to do a little bit of conversion from developer speak to common user speak. So if I want to grab the second page of these 3, you'll notice that the second page here doesn't have a logo at the top. And you probably can't see it. There's a tiny little 2 down there in the bottom right for a page number. So if I type in get page number 2 and I click get page, there we go. Now we only have 1 page here in our web viewer and 1 page in our outgoing PDF currently. And it's just that second page. Now, once we have that second page, we can do things with it, right? We can get the size of it. There it is. And we can add some text to it. If we add Richard at the bottom, or we can actually add last free day, just to have something a little different. And let's bump it up from 100 to, oh, since it's 850 high, how about we go 425 high, approximately in the middle. And we'll add that text. And now we have all 3 pages again, but now on our second page, there's the text that we just added right there in the middle. Okay. So now we're going to go through in code and look to see what we did there with not only getting a page in the middle, but also changing slightly our existing functions for get size and add text to handle that middle page and not just the first or the last. Make sense? Let's go look at the code. Okay. We'll move this up a little bit. Section 8, get page. So we have our standard function, our standard script that we're used to seeing by now. This is where we load all our entire library, 19 lines of it. In line 46, we combine it all into one variable. 49 is a little different, kind of new for us here, and that's where we encode that PDF sitting in a container so that we can use it later. And we use a FileMaker function to do that. Then here's our custom JavaScript, which we'll look here in a minute. Our standard HTML template that we're used to seeing from day one. And we compile it all into one final variable before we dump it into our web viewer. Then in this particular case, we're going to wait 1/10 of a second before we run a function in our web viewer called PDFEditor_load. And as you saw in the example when we covered the question at the beginning, that's this function here, PDF load. So we kind of know what it does now. It's going to launch this, passing in a parameter, which is going to launch this async function with the parameter coming in there. And then we're going to try some stuff. And we'll look at that stuff here in a minute. But that is our web viewer code that did all of the work when we hit init. And now those other buttons are tied to separate scripts, right? So we have the get page button that we clicked. What did we do there? Well, we had to take in what the user typed in for a page number, and we had to bring it into a variable. We do some validation just to make sure the user didn't do something weird like leave it blank, because if we try to pass in a blank value to a parameter, we're going to start getting all kinds of unexpected results. So we want to be sure that page number that the user requested is not blank when they hit the get page button. And then finally, as long as it's not blank, we call our get page function in our web viewer, and we pass in the parameter which page. Last but not least, we check for some basic error checking just in case that perform JavaScript and web viewer step fails. And if so, we present a custom dialog. So that's pretty straightforward. You're kind of used to seeing that type of arrangement for when you click a button on our layout. The same thing is going to happen virtually for our run get size button. We're going to now this time, we're also interested in which page when they click the get size button. So we're going to do the same steps. We're going to make sure it's not blank, and we're actually going to pass that as a parameter this time. In the past, we haven't passed any parameter at all for get size, but now we are, because now we want the size of the page that was selected, not just a default page. Because as you know, as you've seen previously, we can actually have a PDF with pages of different sizes. Standard error checking. We have another button called add text. So we do kind of like what we did before. We grab the text, we grab the position and the rotation, but now we also grab which page because we want to insert it on a certain page. We do validation again to make sure that we don't have blank values and we don't have values that are way outside the range. Now, for some of these that can be outside the range, instead of, where is it? It's this one right here. This one does not exit the script. This is just a warning. So sometimes you can do some validations that don't break anything, but you at least want to tell the user, hey, what you've entered, it might be off the page. So that's what's going on with this strange exception there at the bottom. Finally, we convert all of our parameters into one JSON object so that we can pass that to JavaScript. And we'll parse it out in the JavaScript code. And here's where we call our function PDFEditor_add text, passing in that parameter, same as before. Then we have two scripts that handle results that come back to us from our JavaScript work in our web viewer. This one is when we hit the get page, it's going to send us back some results. So this is where we take care of that and handle it however we wish. In this case, we grab the incoming data that's coming to us, we dump it into a global variable, just for debugging purposes. This is not required. And here we're stripping quotes out of it, stripping double quotes out of it, so that we can dump the thing right into our preview window and things aren't going to break. Here's the 3 lines of code that takes the incoming data and actually creates a finished PDF for us inside of our container at the bottom for outgoing PDF That's where we can describe our file name. So that's what happens when you click the Get Page button and the results come back. When you click the Get Size, we also need a separate result for when those come back, and that's a little simpler. We just simply grab that and dump it into our text field on the layout. So with all that explanation, let's just go look at the JavaScript, which does all the work, now that you've seen all the FileMaker work. Again, I'm going to copy that, move it over to Visual Studio. Oops, not copy, paste, sir. Now, I'll do the same thing we did last week, which is I'm going to temporarily just collapse all of these major functions just so that we can see them all. So that you can kind of wrap your head around, even though things are starting to look bigger and bigger, and we got 237 lines of code now, we actually just have 4 functions. The load that you've seen before, the get size you've seen before, the add text that you've seen before, and the new one you haven't yet seen, which is get page. And you'll notice here, we're passing in some parameters. Now, if we expand that, all of them have the same structure, right? We all have a calling, maybe some initialization of variables down here, and then a call of our async subscript or child script. That's not a script, it's a function, right? Which calls this async function up here. All of them have that same structure. So that's the add text. That should look familiar. The get size should look familiar, except this time we're actually bringing in which page, which is our page number that the user has requested. So really about the only thing that's probably changed in this function is right here. And that is for which page we're interested in. It is not 0. It's not the last page. It is the page number that the user has requested minus 1. You can probably guess why it's minus 1, right? Probably not too big of a test if you've been paying attention. Because the first page, if the user requests the first page, that's actually index 0, right? So index 0 starts at 0, works its way up. So the last page, if there's 10 pages, is going to be index 9. So that should make sense. So that's why we have to do the minus 1. And hopefully it makes sense as far as why for page 1 on the FileMaker layout, I asked for page 1, because as a user, that's what they're going to expect. They're not going to understand a page 0. So without some serious explanation, you're going to start getting unexpected results and unhappy customers if you try a trick like that. So everything else here in the get size should be pretty familiar to all of you. So let's just go to the new function that you haven't seen before, which is the get page. So if I collapse the child or sub function, you'll notice it has the same structure we've done before. Matter of fact, if I collapse the dot then and the dot catch, there's our basic structure, right? And it should be looking familiar because every function we've done for the last 3 days has all looked just like this. And to kind of answer the question as before, as far as do you always have to have this child function? No, but the reason why we is because this particular child function is asynchronous, and we need to call that here within a standard function, because FileMaker cannot call an async function, or if it actually can, I haven't tested. If you actually can call it, you wouldn't be able to handle the dot then and the dot catch. So that would mess you up even if FileMaker could call it. Don't want to do that. So in this case, for get page, we are sending in the parameter of which page the user typed in. And then we are, again, like we've done before, we're grabbing that global PDF doc where we save everything. Every time we make a change or load or anything, we're always saving it to this global variable up here. And here's where I'm going to grab that global variable and pass it in as a local variable. That's probably not required, but it's probably considered to be best practice. So here I'm passing in that same variable here, and then the second parameter ends up becoming the page number that the user's requested. Okay, so what is the actual work going on up here? Well, you can see that I've changed the names of the variables. And again, kind of a best practice, don't have to. But instead of calling it PDF doc here locally inside this function, I'm calling it the doc. And I just happen to keep the same name here, which page. And again, that's not a requirement. You can go either way. You just need to keep it straight in your own mind, create your own best practice, create your own programming habits so that you're not confusing yourself. And if we take a look at what's going on, there's a lot of similar code here that we've seen in previous async functions. The first thing we're doing, as we've done before, is load that doc into a local variable called PDF doc using our library code of load. And here's something we've done before, which is, hey, how many pages does this thing have? There's the method to call on our PDF doc to get the page count. Then here, we want to just kind of make sure that If the user typed in page 10 instead of 1, and there's only 2 pages in there, that would certainly generate an error for everything we're going to do below. So what this does is, hey, just force it so that if the user picked a number bigger than total pages, just make the page that they requested just the last page. They can figure it out. If they get unexpected results, they'll probably be looking around trying to figure out what they might have done wrong, and they'll probably notice they put a 10 in there instead of 1. But at this point, at least we won't generate an error. So then we do something that we did a long time ago, 2 days back, which is create a brand new PDF document from scratch in code. And we call this one new doc. Then we use a function we haven't looked at before, which is copy pages. And this basically does exactly like what you think it does. It copies the pages from the original document into our new document. And once we have that, we grab copied pages. We grab the page. Let's see, what did I do there? My. It's been a while since I wrote this. Whatever I'm doing, I'm adding it. Interesting.
You wrote this in December, right? Or is it before?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably.
It's funny how that is. A couple months goes by and you can't remember what the hell you did. Yeah.
Yeah. I see what I'm doing here, but I'm not sure why I did it.
Why?
That's kind of funny.
That's where you would go up in the comments up there and you'd say, blah, 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 blah. I'm very verbose. He's very succinct. Anyone questions? Next tech? Hey, Mark's there.
Can JavaScript improve the speed of importing a large amount of data?
Importing. Oof, probably not.
I suppose the answer to that would be depends upon how you're importing that data, right? It depends on how you're getting it. If you're literally importing it into FileMaker, yeah, you're stuck. But if you're doing something like a data URL pull of data, and instead of importing it into FileMaker records, you take that data directly into JavaScript, now you're talking some benefit.
Right. But then you have to get it out of the web viewer and parse it or do something like that, right?
Well, you could get it out of insert from URL, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Why don't you finish this and we'll get to the end and we'll cover like the big picture benefits of this thing, right? I think that's best saved when you get to the end. So let's do that.
Right. So the end result of all of this, even though at least 2 lines of code here, I'm kind of scratching my brain trying to remember what I was doing. What's the end result? The end result is we're taking a 3-page PDF. We're saying, hey, grab me page 2, and this is what it's returning, just a second page. So it's returning a brand new PDF that's just page number 2. That's the end result. That's the end goal. Okay. And from there, we can edit it. And what's interesting is that when we edit it, like add text to it, it doesn't just return that second page anymore. Now it returns all 3 with the edited page in the correct spot, right? So exactly why I did what I did in order to get that 1 page back, I would have to actually spend a minute to go back and crawl through that. And I'll apologize now for not being able to explain that. But basically, if you looked in the documentation under copy pages, you could see what you would get. You can see right here, I'm using all of those copied pages to create a variable called the page, and I'm using it here to add. And then I'm saving it like we've done before and passing it back to FileMaker. So it's kind of an interesting step here. Looks kind of convoluted, and I'll apologize for that. But here's the end result. And the very last section is taking that same concept, and instead of adding text to it, we're going to merge PDFs. To me, this is kind of cool.
Merging PDFs has always been kind of a weak spot of FileMaker. We kind of have it, but it's never been really super great.
So let's see how it works. If we hit init, what it did is I have that same original 3-page PDF in there, and that's what we got, 3 pages. But now I have a container here that's empty, an additional PDF. Oh my, whatever shall we pick? I don't know. Let's go to my downloads here. I know I have PDFs hanging around all over the place. Let's just find a random one. Here's one. Here's a 2-page PDF. I'm going to dump it inside that container. If I can get FileMaker respond. Come on, Wakey. There we go. Dump it in there. There it is. So a 2-page PDF there, starting with 3. I hit merge, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So that merged the 2 together. Now, in FileMaker, you could do that exact same thing. If you had an existing PDF, you exported it to like a temp drive or a document drive or something that the computer has access to. And then you save if you have a layout with this on there, you can do a save as PDF and select the append option and pass in the path of your drive of the original, right? You can do that today. That's great. But that's only if you want to merge it at the end. FileMaker only has an append option to the end of it. Well, in code, you can actually change that around and merge the second one in wherever you wish. And that's actually why I wrote this entire package.
Yep, and that's what I was commenting on. This is this is an immediate, practical application of JavaScript to extend FileMaker to do something that it fundamentally doesn't like to do. And so really flexible. I mean, the other way of doing this is, of course, with the Monkey Bread plugin, and that's not free either. And that takes some money and some time, and you got to figure out the scripts and whatnot to do. It just depends on where your wheelhouse is. If you're kind of a JavaScript person, like fundamentally, like Kyle Williams, I know is a JavaScript guru, but imagine someone who's like half or a quarter as good as Kyle as JavaScript. Kyle's like Leland, right? So say like 1/4 Leland, right? But then they need to merge PDFs and do some creative stuff that FileMaker doesn't do. Then you might want to do it with JavaScript because you already have some comfort with it, right? Does that make sense? So,
and here in this demo file, you've got a working set of code that you can just take and use to your heart's content,
which is good, right? And you got a video that kind of walks you through it a little bit. So there you
go. I knew Kyle was going to respond. He's like, Corder Leland, huh? Oh, okay, awesome.
No. I don't think I think you two are very similar in skill sets. I'm pretty sure of that. That being said, I'm just saying that if you had someone who was like 1/4 your skill set, you had some experience with JavaScript, you could code hello world and some basic crap like that, and you weren't totally freaked out by it. And then your boss says, hey, I need you to like merge this PDF, but I want you to put page 5 on the back and page 2 on the front of this other thing, and then add this text watermark over the top. FileMaker scripting won't do that. It doesn't do that. So if you had 1/4 of the Kyle and or Leland skill set, that would be a good area to go to, is my point, right? So
yeah, absolutely. Good use case scenario.
I think it's an excellent use case scenario. Yeah.
Yep. So if we look at this merge PDF technology, we've got our standard population of web viewers here. The only thing we've done a little differently here is we've got the encoded file for our incoming PDF. And what are we doing with it? Here, after we load all of our JavaScript, we are performing PDFEditor_load with that encoded file. So we're loading that first initial encoded file, and then this stops, right? But when we hit the merge button, when we have the merge button, we have to encode a second file, and that's that additional PDF that happens here in the script when you click the button, and then it passes that encoded file into our JavaScript to the PDFEditor merge function. So that's really the only difference, and then we have to handle the results when they come back. So let's look at the JavaScript that does the merge. We've already seen load. Let's copy that whole batch over to our Visual Studio Code, scroll to the top. Let's do the same thing I did before. Let's compress. Now, in this one, I removed a whole bunch of functions just to keep it simple. So we got rid of the get size. We got rid of the add text. We're just sticking with just what we need for merging, and that is 2 functions, load and merge. We take a look at load. It should be identical to the previous load that we've been using. And to me, it looks identical. We're loading it. We're immediately saving it out. We're returning it. And what are we doing when we return it? We're storing it in our global variable at the top, just like we always have. Okay, so nothing new here on load. We've been doing that since day one. What's different is this merge function, and it's accepting a second PDF. So what are we doing with that? Well, we're grabbing our first one and storing it in PDF doc and passing it to our merge function. But then we're sending in our encoded second file. So the only thing that this thing is taking is 2 PDFs encoded, the initial and the additional one, or first and second, if you want to listen to it that way. Other than that, everything looks the same, right? Everything's functioning the same. And here's what we're trying, our try inside of our merge PDFs, short and sweet, nothing too amazing. Here's where we load the original. Here's where we load the additional. Now we have two variables. One's called original, one's called additional. Here's where we use that same thing we used before, which is copy pages. And it uses a function called get page indices, and that just helps the copying to do what it needs to do. And then we're just using a for loop to add the second page, the second PDF as new pages to the original right at the end. That's it. Then we just save it out and we're done. Pretty straightforward. And with that, we've covered all of the basic technology that goes into our PDF editor that you saw at the very beginning, which is the full-fledged do whatever you wish editor. Now, what we just did with that merge is if we load an existing one, like that same 3-pager that we were just looking at, and if we take this PDF, which is pretty similar to that second one I showed you, and we put it after a page number, like let's put it after page 1 so that it puts it, so it inserts it between 1 and 2, and we hit the check mark. Either or not both. Oh, this was selected. How do I delete that? Probably just like that. There we go. There's page 1. There's the new page 2, the new page 3, the original page 2 that's down here now, and the next one after that. So now we just merged right in the middle of the document. We shoved it after page 1. Pretty darn cool. And you can see with the buttons how simple that was. We loaded the original here. We added a new location after page 1 here and clicked the button and just had to populate that thing over in here. Pretty simple. I love it. So with that, you can merge documents however you wish. How are we doing on questions, Marge?
We don't really, well, we've got one on Discord. Should be obvious, but when you have two PDFs and want to, but what if you have two PDFs and want to insert a third one between them?
Simple. What I just did here was to create a new 5-pager, right? By merging two. The first one was 3 pages. Then we inserted a new page 1 and 2 right here after page 1 of the original. Here's my final. Now I can export that and use it as an import to start fresh and do it again. So you can do a 3rd PDF, 4th PDF, 5th PDF, just keep going. Insert as many as you want, put them wherever, what pages you want. And that weird scenario that Richard gave before he disappeared, that's how you could do that right here. Now we're doing it manually here in this editor, but everything we're doing here is with a 0 record count and with JavaScript code. The only thing we're doing here is hitting buttons, putting in parameters and triggering JavaScript code. You can script all that. All of that, everything that I just did here can be converted from a manual process to a coded process based upon what you want it to do. That's cool. So you're not stuck with having to manually do that every time. You can turn that into an automated process. With that, we've kind of wrapped up our PDF editor JavaScript 103 section, 3 days of it, well, 2.5. So I think from here on, I can just kind of start to show some other example files that are available to you to download from pentagon.fm. And they're JavaScript solutions. And I think the first one we can start with is what's my latency, which I created for Richard several months ago. Man, it's actually been more than a year ago, hasn't it? My. His comment on a live stream while I was listening and watching one day was, sure would be nice if Claris gave us a way to see in our hosted FileMaker solutions what my latency is. So I wrote this and sent it to him the next day. And he's including it, I believe, in his starting solution. So you can see this test right here, right now. Apple pinged at 13 milliseconds, Google at 21, Microsoft 15, and my particular FileMaker server at work at 31. So what does this tell you? Well, if Apple, Google, and Microsoft are less than 25 milliseconds, and my FileMaker server would show more than 500 milliseconds, you can kind of see that if your users are starting to complain, you might see why.
This, okay, I was out. I'm working on your email. I'm sending out to the people on the on the training, and this is awesome because if you build this into your solution, and people say, "This is what." If you're okay, so any of you who are in marketing people will come to me and say, "Hey, the computer's slow, the internet is full." This is a tool that allows you to determine if the internet is full. Okay, is the internet full? And if it is full, these numbers, once again, someday we probably have another follow-on class about latency and stuff like that. In fact, that's another follow-up one I want to do, Margaret. We follow up on latency, Claris's specifications for latency, things like this. We're going to want to talk about this and glue this into a solution, etc. But what good milliseconds are? You have milliseconds. This is the delay, and you also have packet loss, which just doesn't really show you. And those two things will really affect whether the internet's full for the marketing department or sales, from that matter. Actually, sales doesn't even say that. Sales just says don't work. Marketing goes internet's full. Is at least my expectation.
I turn this into an add-on, and Richard can distribute it somehow if he wishes. But right now,
is it an add-on now? Is it an add-on officially?
Oh, it's been an add-on. Yeah, it's out on Pentagon.fm. But are you or are you not yet including it in your starter solution?
Well, I could glue it's. I don't think it's in there officially because, frankly, we got busy and then I forgot about it because no one asked me if the internet was full. It's one of those things that you don't think about latency until you notice that there's a problem. Like the other day, I was in my other office and everything was great, and then suddenly the performance across the board was shit, and I couldn't figure out what it is. And I had a tool like this, not in FileMaker. And the tool showed that the latency was kind of okay, but I was dropping like 30% of the packet. So if I say 10 words to you and 3 of the words never make it, you can guess what I'm saying. Well, that causes to not work great on the internet. So anyway, 1% packet loss is about all you ever want max. And at 10%, FileMaker really slows down. So walk us through this again. This is great.
So when you plop the add-on into your solution, you'll end up with a page that looks like this. You click the what's my latency, it runs the tests. And it runs the test based upon these settings up here, which you can change. You can change which servers it's contacting. You can change some things like how many times to test each one, what the timeout is before it gives up.
Oh, it says it's distributed by Productive Computing. So
this particular, no, I gave it to them as well to do in one of their free courses or something.
Okay.
I think it was a JavaScript course or something about a year ago, but it's out on Pentagon.fm as a straight up add-on.
Okay, great.
Yeah, Pentagon, so it's available in various sources.
Can you show Pentagon FM? Because I don't normally use those guys. All right.
And they have a little catalog with several of my solutions and other people's.
Okay.
And their add-ons and demo files, they're all FileMaker files.
Okay.
There's my async sound. There's my JSON array sort that I'll show you.
Wait. What's your async sound? What does your async sound do? What does that do?
That allows you to create your own sound files that you can play asynchronously. You can drop a sound file in there and it'll show you how it'll do the encoding for you and turn it into something you can trigger via JavaScript. That's how I made my FM piano that I showed you last week.
Can you trigger it just with a script? Because that's one of the things, just playing sounds FileMaker used to be easy, and now it's a giant pain in the.
Let me bring that up. I haven't seen that for a minute. Let's see. That's this one here. So you drop a file in here. You pick which sound extension it is. You hit encode. It'll turn it into an encode, and then you can play it here. So this is run asynchronously through JavaScript. This is how I did all of my sounds on all of my games like Pac-Man and Space Invaders.
Okay.
And also made FM Piano. But I decided to make this little add-on so that people can create their own and go through the script and figure out how to do that.
So they want to know if it's MP3. I would assume it does MP3 if it does M4A, right? So.
Yeah, I forget which ones were easy and which ones you had to do a little conversion. Do I have a drop down in here? No, I have 3 demo sounds. There's an MP4, there's a wave, and there's a wave. So when you do sound searches out there, you'll notice wave is a very common one. MP4 is another one. Now, I think if you dump a file on a Mac, if you dump it into QuickTime Player, you can export it, and when you do, it'll be an MP4.
Oh, okay. Well, then that allows you to convert it pretty easy.
You might have to do 2 steps to get it in here. Yeah. So in Pentagon, that async sound is one of them, and I'll show all of these here in a minute. JSON array sort, JSON diff, my iCandy matrix digital rain. Those are all mine.
Is that yours?
Yeah. So to continue demoing, that was what's my latency and async sounds. Yeah, so what's my latency is you can configure it to do what you wish, but that's an add-on there on Pentagon.
Okay.
Another one I will show off is JSON array sort. So here's a sample array here on the left of JSON's data coming in, and you'll notice that I've got it's a little deep, right? I've got an array full of objects. Each individual object has a key value pair with one key result. Inside there is another object, and then I've got 3 fields, right? It's kind of similar to the data API results you get back from FileMaker. It's a few levels deep to get to a field.
Sure.
So I wanted to be able to sort by that because, as I already explained before, JSON is not guaranteed to be in any particular sort order. So your results might vary as far as the order that these 5 objects come to you as, especially coming over from the internet. I wanted to sort them in a custom sort before importing them into FileMaker through a loop, right? So that's why I created this. So here's an example. Let's say I want to sort by this num field. You notice I put in some numbers that here on the left are completely out of order.
Yeah.
Okay. So down here, I have to describe the field path to get to what I want to sort. So for each object, I need the key result and then dot num inside the result. So you see how that works? So I type in that path here. Then I have to tell it, well, what is it? It's a number type. And do I want ascending or descending? You pick, Richard.
Ascending.
Okay. And I hit sort, and there it sorts the entire thing by that number. Now you can see 11, 22, 33, 44.
So you built this. This is obviously not something that's built into FileMaker, even though it would make perfect sense for them to have a.
This is all JavaScript
Mm.
in this little web viewer right here. And if you look through the script, you can see the same JavaScript code that I used in order to make all this work. And it's free and unlocked, and you can play with it all you want. Now, let's change this to that creation date, right? And it's a date timestamp, and let's do descending this time. So newest on top. There it is. 829, 829, 828, 728, 628. And the times were even in order here for the same date. So this is a way to custom sort any results that you get from anybody. You can custom sort it any way you wish. Now you can do the same thing in FileMaker, but that would mean you'd have to import this into temp records, and then you'd create fields and figure out which field you want, and then you would sort by that, and then you could take those results and export them or do whatever you want, right? So you can do the same thing in FileMaker. This just makes it that much easier to do in JavaScript before you bring it in FileMaker.
Okay, cool. And then
next one is JSON diff.
Diff, yes.
So here's one JSON object here on the left. Here's one on the right with a slight change. And if I hit compare, it tells me that I removed one hello and I added one goodbye. So picture this diff being hundreds or thousands of lines instead of just one object and having it show you the differences. Now, I had a vendor that would send me updates, and every update that we got was the entire blob all over again. And he wouldn't tell us what had actually changed with thousands of lines of data. So I used the JSON diff function right here to just determine what exactly had changed, literally. And again, that's something that the JavaScript's very fast and very efficient at. Okay, here's the last one I'm going to show, which is my matrix digital rain, which is pure eye candy. Red and a blue pill, hit the blue pill, and you get some lovely eye candy in FileMaker.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that.
Put that across my 3 screens at work and sit back and drink some coffee and chill out for a little while. It's nice and relaxing. I've had some people tell me that's their favorite add-on that they've ever gotten.
What character set is that? Because it's not like normal characters.
Oh, there's a bunch of international characters. Yeah, it's a wild set.
Okay.
But if you watch the Matrix movie and slow it down, especially the intro that kind of shows this, you'll notice they do kind of the same thing.
Yeah, they have some of the characters are really different.
So anyways, all these add-ons are all available at Pentagon.fm, if not other sources, and they're all free and unlocked and free for you to use. So with that, I think all I can do is thank everybody for showing up for 10 days, and that's a wrap.
That's a wrap. Let's see if we have any other questions. Rick Stringer says, nice. Yeah, Rick is the guy on Twitch who importing a lot of data into FileMaker. I don't know about a huge amount of data, but probably quite a bit. You'd want to figure out best ways of loading that data and doing that. Probably JavaScript could be helpful. Anytime that JavaScript can do the calculations for you, do the math for you, and Hans and some other developers have commented on this. The libraries that it uses are way faster than fundamentally what's in the FileMaker platform, right? So that's kind of the issue with that one. So
And if you go back and watch, what was it, day 5? Or was it? Yeah, I think it was day 5, which was a Monday. The last session of JavaScript 101, we did 3 real world examples using 1 million records. We had JavaScript crank through that.
And that was much faster than FileMaker. It wasn't even close. So that was a good example of that.
It was real simple on 100 records, but as soon as you start doing 10,000 records plus, all of a sudden JavaScript was shining.
David Angel says, why is FileMaker so slow compared to JavaScript?
Mostly because FileMaker is doing a line by line inside your script engine interpretation of what you've asked it to do, and it has to do a one line to one line compiling as far as what it really, the language it really understands. It's very similar, as far as I know, it's pretty similar to the old BASIC we used to use back when I was in middle school. It's a line interpretation. It's not compiled. You don't have to throw FileMaker scripts when you're done into a compiler to generate computer code to run that thing efficiently. Now, JavaScript in some ways, I'm not sure how they get around it, but there's obviously there's something going on there that has to do, I don't know. We're kind of delving into a world where I don't really have answers. I just kind of have educated guesses. But
yeah, Hansa's talked about it. Hansa thinks that if Claris would go back with some of their functions and update them with some new updated algorithms, that would be faster. I don't know that to be the case. I know that we have a video where we've done a live stream where we talk about the 3 engines that are in FileMaker, and the scripting engine is the slowest one. The fastest calculation engine is the one that's buried in custom functions. If you have a function that runs, a calculation that runs in a custom function, an identical custom function or identical function that you load with a set field command or something in a script, the custom function will execute like 100 times faster or something. It's like not double fast, it's like 100 times, it's like quite a bit faster. So, and then there's an in-between speed of some other stuff. So that's why you see Nick talk about some of these performance tweaks and things like that. I think getting in front of Claris and saying, hey, this is a professional code tool, you should update some of this to make things faster. They would want to make it faster. They'd also want to make sure they don't break anything. Backwards compatibility would be really important for them. So yeah, so tomorrow we're looking at Nick Hunter starting a WebDirect mobile makeover. So talking about some of that kind of action. And then Friday, Monkey Bread from Christian Schmidt. Christian Schmidt's not been around a while. He's feeling lonely, so he sent Margaret a message saying, let us know if there's something you want me to talk about or do. Cool. All right. Well, that's it for today, everyone. Once again, the recordings are going to be posted. I've asked the web team to fix that for us. So if you come over here, this button, and I press this button right here, this is where you can see the free videos. This is where also if you want to upgrade and watch the paid videos, they'll be recorded. They'll be posted there as well for the React Native. So for those of you, we'll see you in about an hour. Everyone else, will catch you tomorrow with Nick Hunter, 1 o'clock Pacific time at fmtraining.tv. Thanks. Got a report of an individual up here who may be a FileMaker license. Well, it's potentially expired. Look at the back of that car right there. Looks like the FileMaker license has expired. Sir, I need you to step out of the vehicle. Sir, step out of the vehicle. Sir.